I want to introduce Stephanie Shepard, who is an advisory board member at Last Prisoner Project. Stephanie, I've had the pleasure of talking to before, and she has a really interesting and personal story that I'm really honored that she's willing to share in this format. With that, hi, Stephanie, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Good. Well, Stephanie, I first of all, we're at LEUNE, we're big supporters and really big proponents of Last Prisoner Project and all of the good work that you guys are doing over there. I think anyone in the cannabis industry who hasn't heard of Last Prisoner Project at this point is living under a rock. It's really exciting to see how much attention has been, pointed towards what you guys are doing. One of the things that you guys do that I think doesn't get as much attention or conversation is really reentry and the program that brought you to Last Prisoner Project. And love for you to just tell your story and also how that led you to Last Prisoner Project.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the kind words you said about Last Prisoner Project. What got me involved in the Last Prisoner Project is in 2010, I was arrested in New York. First time nonviolent cannabis conspiracy to distribute 1,000 or more kilos of cannabis. I knew this wasn't the right thing. I took it to trial. And like 98% of the people who take things to trial, especially in New York, I lost. And I was sentenced to 120 months in prison, which is 10 years.
Oh, I've heard this story before, but it still gives me chills because obviously I'm somebody participating in the legalized space. And, it's never lost on me that there is just such an enormous disparity, and it isn't, 50 or 100 years ago. It's today. It's right where we are, and that's really what I want to talk to you about in your perspective and in your personal experience in, going through this crazy experience that is incredibly unfair, but then B, what does the path after that look like? You've now been out for over a year. Is that right?
Yeah, I was let off of my ankle monitor June. There's certain days you just never forget.
Sure.
I forgot the days I walked out. I forgot, or I remember the days I walked out. So June 5th, I got my ankle monitor off. And the way it worked out is when I was released from prison, I did almost 9 years, just shy of 9. You go to a halfway house. So I went to the halfway house in Oakland, California, which is 80 miles from my relocation address, but they want you to get a job. So I was very against getting a job because they want you to get a job so you can pay them. And I felt like I had been working for 12 cents an hour in prison the whole time I was in prison teaching English to people ESL teacher. So I did that the entire time I was in prison. But you only make 12 cents an hour. And I felt like I had done my duty. So once I got to the halfway house, you can either get a job or you can volunteer. So I chose to volunteer at St. Vincent's de Paul, the shelter in Oakland, and they feed people. That's what I would have rather done with my time than pay a halfway house. Well, when you're not paying them, they find a way to get you out quickly. So once I was released on home confinement, I thought, finally, I'm going home. No, you're not going home to just go home. You're going home to continue the process. So they gave me less than 2 weeks to find a job. Mm-hmm. So I'm fresh out of prison. I'm still emotionally spent. I now have to find a job. I have an ankle monitor on. So it had a GPS. You have to let them know everything that you're doing. So when I went on this job interview, I was like, well, who is going to hire me? And it's not small enough. It's not small. It's not like a Fitbit. It's the size of a garage door opener. And there's no hiding it. I let the manager know prior to going to the job interview of the only place I thought of. I panicked. And my history is in real estate, selling real estate in New York City. I've worked for the NBA. I didn't know what to do at this point. So I said, I have to get a job. I don't want to violate. I went to Starbucks right across the street from my house, make it easy. Before I went for the interview, I told the manager, listen, I have to tell you something because there's no way I can get a job without involving the probation. And so once I told him, he was kind of put off, but he said, come in anyway. We'll just see what happens. I went in and it was not only him, but it was his boss at the interview. It just so happened she was there and wanted to sit in. So when I began to explain to her my situation, I could tell she was very taken aback, but she allowed me to go on with the interview. And at the end of the interview, she said, I want you to know that when people come in for interviews, I don't give feedback. She's like, but I want you to know that I appreciate your honesty, which really I had not much of a choice since they would have to talk to the halfway or the home confinement administrators. And so she said, if you don't get the job, it's not because of you and it's not because of us. We have a third party company that does the background checks and we don't know what they look for. So I was very nervous because that was the last day before I would violate. And the very next day, I got an email saying that I was being hired. I was very, very relieved because I didn't want to violate. But at the same time, I was like, and now I'm working at a coffee shop. Once I got my ankle monitor off, I felt like, okay, now I can get on with my life. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the confidence that I had going into prison and with my past. So reaching out to other jobs, other companies, it was scary. It was really, really scary. What Last Prisoner Project has helped me with is regaining some of that confidence, regaining the feeling that I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe I was involved in cannabis in a place where they said it's not okay, but it's okay in 33 states.
Yeah. And
that's what made it difficult.
Of course. And, Stephanie, I just, first of all, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us. And I want to implore upon you that the people watching this video are exactly the people who need to hear it, meaning we are part of the legalized industry and we are profiting from this plan. And I think it's really important to put a face, to make it real, to put a person, to attach that familiarity to your experience is unfortunately not an uncommon one. And, hearing you the other day tell me the story about, being in prison and watching television and the evening news and watching a story about a local cannabis dispensary owner flourishing while you're serving time. I mean, it's devastating, right? This disparity is happening today. And, I want to give you the opportunity to, talk a little bit about that because now you kind of are straddling both of those lines because you have been in that position and now you're on the other side of it. And, I think that we all have a tremendous opportunity in this industry to start righting some of these wrongs, to start taking some responsibility. and to be part of a story of like what it looks like to actually, build a beautiful industry together, right? And I am a little bit of an idealist in that way, but I just want to hear a little bit from you about what that was like, and just a little bit about that.
In prison, they make it very, you're very closed off from the real world, from the outside world. And being in there, you have 2 TVs for 180 women. How's that going to go when you want to watch the news? And it just so happens on this night that another inmate and I were sitting in there together, and she was also in for cannabis. She had received, I believe, 7 years. She had a young daughter when she left home. And she and I sat in there to watch the news when we heard they were doing a story on cannabis. And the cannabis industry had changed so much while we were inside. And we were so shut off from what was going on and all the legalization in so many different states. And so we're sitting there and we watch, and the reporter comes on and he says to a blonde hair, blue-eyed lady, "So how's business? How's the cannabis business?" And she just smiled and she said, "It's booming." And she proceeds to discuss her Beverly Hills Cannabis Club. And me and the other inmate looked at each other and said, "Wow, business is booming. And we're sitting in here." And that moment, the other inmate is African American. I'm African American. And you have the white lady on TV bragging about how business was booming. And it just really made me determined that when I got out, I would make something out of this wrong. I would attempt to right this wrong that was done to me. And it's taking work, and it's taking putting myself out there and being vulnerable and saying, this is what I've been through, but this is where I want to head. And that's what reentry, that's why it's so important, because I get really emotional talking about it, because there's 40,000 plus people still in prison for marijuana. But I can go right down the street to it. Well, I can't because I'm on probation. Anyone can go right down the street and go inside and buy as much marijuana as they want. Come on out, go in their car. There's billboards. We deliver. Steve D'Angelo, bless him. Shout out to Steve D'Angelo in Harborside. They have a drive-in, a drive-through in Palm Springs, where you can just drive on through and keep going. So all of this is going on outside while we are away from our families, away from children. It just made the reentry situation that much more crucial. And when I got out, I thought, okay, I'm out of prison. But you're not. Your journey is just beginning, honestly. Because in prison, you don't have to deal with the day-to-day things in life. There's things you're dealing with, but the day-to-day things you don't deal with. Coming out with a felony, that is where it starts. Because I was in jail for almost 10 years, and I was on pretrial for a year. Even on pretrial, when I was trying to just go on with my life till my sentencing or till the trial or till I was found not guilty or guilty or whatever it was going to be, I just wanted to work and save and have a normal life for what was to come. And you have to renew your license. I was, like I said, a real estate agent in New York, and every couple of years you renew your license, and I would always do mine online. And I was doing mine online about maybe 6 months into this pretrial situation. And the very first question, which I never noticed all the times I've renewed my license online, was, do you have a felony conviction? So I clicked no. And the second question is, do you have a felony conviction pending? And so right from that moment, this charge was hindering my life. So now I immediately was declined for the renewal of my license. And I simply had to struggle till my sentencing date. Now I don't have a job. So through my savings and through my family, thank goodness for them and their help, I was allowed to even live, because I couldn't even leave at that time to go home, because now I'm stuck. So not having a job and knowing what that felt like, and then getting out and having that feeling all over again, it was hard. It was very, very, very difficult to apply for the kinds of jobs I applied for in the past. Having a resume that you have to explain why you only have one job in the last, 10 years. And
well, it seems like to me, Stephanie, that our industry is perfectly poised to do something to help, quite frankly, right? Like we should be aligned in incentive directly with people like you, because we have, right? Like this is very close to home for all of us. And I'm really excited about all the work that Last Prisoner Project is doing. I am really eager and hopeful that everyone watching this finds a way to get involved and support the hard work. And we're honestly so lucky to have people like you who are willing to be vulnerable and tell their stories and to be a face for this, and to really implore upon us that, hey, like now we need jobs. We need to move on with our lives, right? This is a perfect opportunity. We're in an industry that is flourishing, to your point. It's growing. It's in infancy. We have so much work to do. I think we have a perfect opportunity, and we're lucky to have organizations like LPP, to have people like you. Thank you so much for spending the time and giving us the perspective. I will make sure that there are links to LPP and all the ways that folks can support. But just hearing your story, I think is really, it's obviously very devastating, but it's also really inspiring, because we have a shot to make a difference, to do something, and to also understand tangible things that need to be done. We tangibly need to help, not only with helping with bail funds and decarceration, but also with what you're talking about, reentry. That's like you said, a whole new chapter starts from the time that you get out of prison. So thank you again for being here and giving us the time. And I hope we have the opportunity to talk more in the future.
Thank you so much. And just shout out to LPP, Growth, and everybody who's involved.